Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a lot of fun. This is a collaboration with another creator here on YouTube. Her name is Bri from Bri C Beauty. I'm going to link her Instagram and her YouTube channels down below. If you want to check her out, I definitely recommend you check out her channel because Bri is really fun. She loves eyeshadow, especially indie brands. She puts up tons of content on all of her platforms and she's a really sweet girl with lots of creative looks. So in today's video, we're going to be doing If I Could Only Keep 10 Palettes. And let me tell you, this was tricky. I scoured my collection trying to figure out, okay, if I can only keep 10, it would have been easier if I could choose 15, but I couldn't. I could only choose 10. So while I put up a little clip showing you some of what Bri does, let me tell you some of my thought processes as far as the palettes that I selected today. I went through my whole collection and I was thinking, okay, there are a few different ways I could look at this prompt. You know, it could be if I were to choose only 10 palettes that gave me the most well-rounded collection, a little 10 palette collection. All of the colors and the formulas that I liked hit all the bases, neons and pastels and deep and grungy and bright and matte and shimmer and topper, all those things. That would be one way to look at the prompt. But the way that I chose to look at it was to just pick out the 10 palettes that are more of a mix, you know, the ones that bring me the most joy, the most inspiration, also have top-notch formula and great color stories. I pulled up the palettes that get me excited, the ones where I just can't stop coming up with ideas, and then the thought of pairing them together is so joyful because I know that I've got two fabulous elements and putting them together is going to create even more options. That's how I decided to look at this prompt. So let's get into If I Could Only Keep 10 Palettes. Before I forget, I filmed today's eyeshadow look. This is part of my week of wilderness. I don't know if that has gone live by the time you're seeing this video or not. It kind of depends on when Bri and I work to get this video published, but I will card above my week of playlist. You can check out that playlist and look for the week of wilderness because this eyeshadow look is in there. So I'm going to start off this list of 10 with my favorite neutral palettes. I mean, I love colorful eyeshadow, so I thought it'd be fun, a little twist to start off with my favorite neutral palettes. I would have to bring, who's surprised, the Sea Talk palette from Oden's Eye. I absolutely love this palette. This is when they collaborated with Lauren from Lauren May Beauty. I think that this palette is absolutely fantastic. Just look at the colors. It's so beautiful. I think it's a beautiful mix of cool, warm, little bit of deeper tones, and then lots of bright, bright sparkles. None of these sparkles are too dark. I really prefer my shimmers to be mid or light tones, so all of these work for that. And I love the Oden's Eye formula, of course. I love the Oden's Eye packaging, of course. I love their color stories. They're so innovative and interesting. You will see some other Oden's Eye palettes in this video, and I think that this is a beautiful neutral palette because I can get a standard brown crease, I can deepen it with a lovely blue, and then every other color in here is both beautiful and interesting. These pops of color in the center are really, really unique. I think I say this every time. This Electric Kelp is a yellowy matte with a little bit of sparkle in it, but it leans more green, so it's a really unique color to work with the blues and to work with the browns. This shadow here, Iridescent Shell, is a topper shade. It's very, very thin, thinner than most of Oden's Eye's shimmer formulas, and it has a lot of different shifts in it, so it's going to carry different directions depending on what you pair it with. It is so, so beautiful, and of course these two as well. This one's got a lot of purple in it, but then a great deal of blue, and then a lovely turquoisey shimmer with little flecks of yellow. Oh my word. Or you could just stay neutral and pick one of these brown shimmers and rock out your look from there. It's absolutely fantastic. I love this palette. And then I was a little bit surprised, but honestly, my other favorite neutral palette has also landed in this video. This is the Nouveau palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I think everything's right about this palette, particularly for a more mainstream, less indie-leaning brand. This is such a great palette, honestly. I love the packaging. It's got sort of a linen feel to it, and it just feels a little bit elevated, you know? And then the inside, of course, is very, very neutral. It's very neutral with that beautiful pop of purple. But I feel that this palette does neutrals in kind of an interesting way because it has unique undertones. The warms lean kind of cool, the cools lean kind of warm. Everything somehow works together despite the fact that you have distinct colors, coral and peach, green, and then a few more darker or unusual shades. This Peacock is sort of a blue, purple, gray base, and over here is Muse, which is a deep brown with a hint of sparkle. So you've got the deeper options, one or two light options, a couple of mid-tone options. There are mattes that work with all the shimmers, which I do enjoy, so you could make things flow more smoothly, or you could get some contrast by grabbing a matte that doesn't match the shimmer. There are a couple of inner corner highlight options, and the shimmers, I think, Again, we're not talking indie quality here, but for what it is, it's really quite good. And I think it compares favorably to the indie palettes because these shimmers are really lovely. Like, they're smooth, they're creamy, they are a tiny bit dry. Again, they're not like Blend Bunny or Glamlight or something, but they're still good. And with this palette, you're gonna get a more classy, chic sort of look. If I'm going for sophistication, this is a palette that jumps to mind because it gives me a little bit of color, a little bit of fun and playfulness, but still looking slightly elevated. Now let's go the opposite direction with very bold, very bright, very pigmented and vibrant colors. This is the Monteverde Cloud Forest palette from Nomad Cosmetics. This is my favorite palette from the Nomad brand. I think this is so great. As we've established, I love colorful eyeshadow, so those first two palettes were not throwaways because they made my top 10 if I could keep only 10, but they are definitely quieter. This palette is not quiet. This palette is loud and bold and in your face, and funnily enough, the first time I filmed with it, I got a pretty neutral look, but that was slightly challenging. Besides those options that I used in that video, look at these colors. The reason I chose this palette, besides the fact that it is my favorite from Nomad, is because it gives me lots of greens, and I love, love, love greens. And there are not a ton of greens smattered throughout the rest of these palettes, so I wanted a good foundational choice of greens. And also it gives me the neons, and I really, really like neons. I like the very, very bright, bold colors. They're so much fun for an inner corner pop, to throw on the lower lash line and just wake up your eye look. They're fun to pair with deeper grungy tones. I like the contrast that neons give me, and this palette has a very good formula. Really, really nice neons. The other palette I considered for neons was the Surge palette from Blend Bunny, but that one didn't have as good shimmers and it didn't have as many greens, so this one made the cut instead. It will come as a surprise to absolutely no one that I have included the Merry Christmas palette from Oden in this video. This palette was my favorite in 2022. Of all the palettes I owned, my entire collection, I ranked this as number 1. Oden is my favorite brand. For formula, color story, packaging, size of palettes, everything, Oden wins. And this palette was obviously part of their holiday collection last year. I've done a whole week of uploads using only this palette. Again, the week of playlist is carded above for you. I still haven't run out of ideas. I've done at least 6 looks, and that doesn't, it might not seem like a lot given a 16 pan palette, but considering that I use 4 or 5 shadows in all of my looks, 6 looks in rapid fire succession is actually kind of impressive without me getting tired of the palette, without me running out of ideas or feeling uninspired or feeling like, oh, well, yeah, I think I'll just grab something else. You know, I still want to play with this. I still get excited. I still fall asleep thinking about the colors in this palette and how I can work them together. There's something about this color story which is almost infinitely inspiring to me, and it really gets my creative juices going. I get so many ideas and it's so fun. The formula is amazing. It performs beautifully. It is exactly what I expect it to be. It does what I expect it to do, and the looks I get are more than I expect, because when you pair the interesting colors, the interesting undertones, the amazing formula, pair it all together, you get like the next level of sparkle and shine and things blending and flowing together in really unexpected ways. This palette is awesome and I just love it. I just love it. So it had to make today's video because I wouldn't want to part with it. So let's talk about Cosmic brushes. Cosmic brushes, their first palette I think was Royal Rose, and that one has never caught my attention. It's just too pink, you know. But the next palette they launched really put them on the map, and that was the Serenity palette. The Cosmic brushes formula is excellent. The packaging is beautiful. I mean, look at this. I like these rounded corners. That's very unique in my collection, but really, even in all the palettes I see released daily, I think that this rounded corner element is quite different. There's a nice mirror in here. The packaging is just, it feels nice. It's sort of soft touch. It feels quality. It's a pleasure to hold. It's a good size, etc. So they do a great job with the packaging. And then the formula. They do an amazing job with the formula. You get so much pigment, so much workability. Is that a word? It's easy to work with. It's fun to work with. You get beautiful looks. The formula is lovely. The shimmers are kind of thin, but not in a bad way. They're more like very iridescent, very sparkly and shiny. They catch the light in a beautiful way. You get a specific kind of shine with the Cosmic brushes shimmer. The mattes are pigmented and very buildable. They're pretty easy to blend. They require a little bit of work, but not anything that that you wouldn't expect. And I love blue and purple, so this is more a blue and purple theme, but then it's got some greens in here, and it has some interesting fun pops. It's got some inner corner highlights, it's got some depth, lots of midtones, lots of color options. It's great. And then the other amazing thing about Cosmic brushes is the price point. This was like $24. how are they doing that? I don't know how they're doing that. That's an astoundingly low price given the quality of the packaging and the formula. It's amazing. I don't know how they're making any money, but the fact that this kind of blew up the eyeshadow internet can't be a bad thing, right? A couple of palettes in my collection were contenders for more pastel looks, and I do like pastels. I didn't think that I would when I first started playing with pastels, but I quickly learned, actually I really like pastels. I like the way that they look on my skin. I have blue undertones, so more white-based pastels tend to look good on me, and I just like the lightness that pastels can add if you're bringing in darker or grungier tones. A lot of contrast, a lot of interest, you know. So there were a few palettes that I thought about for pastels, but I ended up choosing with very little effort the Garden of Juvia's palette from, of course, Juvia's Place. This is quite new to my collection, and I actually really like this palette. I really like this palette because it's beautiful pastels. The color story is fun. It's very floral, very light, airy, you know, but the quality of the shadows is an improvement from my previous experience with Juvia's Place. In particular, the shimmers. And this is a very shimmer heavy palette. There are more shimmers than mattes, I think. I'm not gonna take the time to count. Maybe it's an even split, but overall, the shimmers in here are all shifty. You know, they're duo or multi-chromes. They're not heavy and thick. They're not gonna accentuate the texture on aging skin. They're not gonna look burdensome and heavy. They're very, very light, super sparkly, really, really, really pretty, and really fun to work with. I have a couple different videos using this palette. I used it once, and then I did a second video where I did 2 looks using this palette. So I have a Juvia's Place playlist if you want to search my channel. I think that this palette's great. And the quality of the mattes is also very good. So I can use any of these as an inner corner highlight, a brow bone highlight, a lower lash line, just to brighten things up a bit. You could lay this down and then put a sparkle on top of it to make the shimmers even brighter. It is really fun. It is really good quality. I'm sure they improved their formula with this palette and some of their newer ones, but I thought it would be fun to bring in some pastels, and Garden of Juvia's 100% hits the mark. Okay, back to a quieter palette for a moment here, and back to Cosmic Brushes, the Muse palette. I wasn't, I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I wanted to get this palette. Back and forth. I knew the quality of Serenity, I knew the packaging, I liked all of that, the size and everything. It was just the color story, and this color story kept pulling me back. I wanted something a bit more neutral, a little bit more subdued, a little quieter, if you know what I mean. And I had considered multiple different more neutral palettes until I realized, I can get all of those with a twist, a little more interesting if I just pick up the Muse palette. So I ended up doing the pre-order, knowing the formula, knowing the quality, knowing that it would pair beautifully with Serenity. I thought the Muse palette would fill the gap for me in terms of the softer colors, some mauves, some browns, some cranberry, mahogany types of colors, but with a twist, because look at all these interesting pops. Mustard and teal and rose and a lichen green over here, and then some purples. Really very, very pretty. Performs beautifully, of course. It is exactly the formula that I remember from the Serenity palette. I'm very happy with this purchase, and I don't know, there's something about the whole presentation that's extremely appealing. It's very attractive, it's soft, it's gentle, it's elegant. Like, I feel that the whole package embodies the design on the cover. It's floral and romantic and kind of wistful, but you're still gonna get a high quality, beautiful, sparkly, or muted, or neutral, or colorful kind of look. This brings a lot to my collection, and I have a whole week of Muse and a whole week of Serenity. Check out my week of playlist. With these last 3 palettes, there was another one from Oden's Eye that absolutely had to make the cut. I considered bringing in the Norns palette, and they recently reformulated the Norns palette. I have the old one, and I think if I had the new one, I maybe would have brought that one into this video, but because I have the old one and we're working with reality and not hypotheticals, I decided not to bring in Norns and instead grab the Christmas Eve palette. Now, this was given to me by one of my extremely generous subscribers, and I am still slightly floored about it, honestly. But this is the sister, of course, to the Merry Christmas. This is the cool-toned nighttime sky kind of version of it, whereas Merry Christmas is warm, this is cool. Merry Christmas is bright, this is more subdued. This is a beautiful companion, honestly, and it kind of hits all of those cool tone dreams that I want. We've got some silvers and some dusty mauves, a couple of beautiful blues, 1 or 2 multi-chromes, a lovely yellow that goes with everything, of course. I also considered bringing in maybe the Blueberry Muffin from BH Cosmetics, but I like the formula and the packaging a little bit better from Oden's Eye, and therefore this one had to go higher than that one. It's so beautiful. It's so much fun to play with. I look good in cool tones, so this is right up my alley as far as my own natural skin undertones. And sometimes if you're feeling a little bit stuck as far as what could I do or what colors are going to work, just find a palette that really matches your undertones and see what colors are pre-curated for you. Everything's going to work. This shade right here, this gorgeous shadow, I don't know if you can see that on camera. In the pan, it looks very blue purple. But when I used this on my eyes most recently, it turned pretty darn pink. And it was shocking to me. Absolutely beautiful, amazing. It is a multi-chrome, so of course, again, it's gonna grab different undertones and colors of what you're pairing it with, but it's gonna be so much fun. Again, love the packaging, love the formula, love the color story. It's absolutely a winner. It's a winner. I have to mention my favorite matte formula. Tip-top favorite matte formula. Oden's Eye is my favorite brand overall for multiple categories, but if we're talking about pulling out individual formulas, I think I have to say Sydney Grace. So here is the Tropicolor palette from Sydney Grace. This was their collaboration with Tina from the Fancy Face. I have 3 Sydney Grace palettes at this point. I have 2 of the collab palettes with Temptalia, but the reason I pulled out Tropicolor was because it's more colorful. Quite frankly, this is what makes me happy, is colorful eyeshadow. This one does have some other neutral tones, even a few neutral shimmers, and the shimmers are amazing. I might have pulled this palette only for this shadow right here, Coconut. It is the most striking, highly pigmented, almost white, sort of a bone sort of white matte, but it's got some sparkle. It's incredible. It is the exception to the boring bone matte rule. This palette was also pulled because it has some interesting shimmers. This one is so pretty. This one, Dr. Bird, is another multi-chrome where in the pan it looks sort of a brown pink, maybe with some orange. But again, when I recently used it on my eyes, I put it with I put it with this shadow. No, this one, Cocoa Beans, and it just turned a totally different color from what I was expecting. So it's a very versatile shade and will surprise you. And then I also loved these 2 shimmers over here. Oh, these pool blues and turquoises, they're so beautiful. This palette has a good balance of lightness and depth. You can go more neutral. I mean, look at these mattes. They're all pretty warm toned mattes. And then there are a couple warm neutral shimmers, or you can go quite colorful. It's lovely, and the formula is amazing. Now, the Sydney Grace shimmers do not excite me quite as much as the Oden's Eye shimmers. Oden's Eye formula is a bit lighter. It's not topper shades. They do have a few topper formulas like the iridescent shell, but their regular shimmer formula is just very creamy, highly pigmented, smooth. It blends, it builds, it's gorgeous. The Sydney Grace shimmer formula is also amazing. It just doesn't have quite the same level of shine that I personally want, so they're really, 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 really good. They're just not quite as exciting for me as Oden's Eye. And the final palette in today's video. I wanted to give this brand credit for formula. The formula is incredible, and I love this palette for the formula and the color story. So here's the Lure palette from Blend Bunny Cosmetics. Everything that people say about Blend Bunny's formula is correct. They are spot on. Their mattes are incredible, and they have stepped up their shimmers a bit too. Like I said, I have the Surge palette, and the shimmers in Surge, which is older, that formula is not as good as this formula. So here's the Lure palette. This one kind of scratched my itch for all of the blue, purple, teal tones that I love in light, medium, dark, and shimmers. I love these colors, and I look good in these colors, so I knew that I wanted them to be well represented in my 10 palette collection as well. I wanted to be able to find great blues or great purples or great teals or somewhere in the middle, and we even have some more neutrals over here that are cool toned, works with my skin undertones, and then a row of absolutely beautiful shimmers. So yes, this color story is certainly not as varied as the other ones that I've talked about today, but it is colors that I love to play with, I love to wear, and it's those colors in amazing formula with beautiful packaging too. And that wraps up today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out Bri's video as well. Her video will be linked down below in my description box, again, along with her channel and her other socials. I look forward to seeing what she has picked out for today's prompt. It is so much fun to do these collab videos. Thank you, Bri, if you're watching this. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I appreciate you and your time and your content. I appreciate everything that you bring to this space, your inspiration, your personality. Thank you very much. And to everyone else, thank you all very much for being here today. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Do comment below if you could select some of your absolute ride or die kinds of palettes in your collection. What would you put? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I so enjoy interacting with you guys in my comments. I hope you have been enjoying your day. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!